feels like almost everyone is doing Leetcode wrong. Common mistakes with interview prep and Leetcode. Okay, this is 413. Bang, done. Everyone says this though. Everybody in the industry says you're doing Leetcode wrong. Every time I open YouTube, it's a million people being like, you're doing Leetcode wrong. And I'm like, it seems pretty self-explanatory to me. I don't know. Feels pretty easy to me. There's problems. I solve the problems. That's about it. But okay, let's see. This will be long. Okay, thanks for, gotta buckle in. But I feel like I have to say this because this constantly bothers me on numerous subreddits, on Leetcode, on HackerRank, and every one of these sites, the way people approach Leetcode and why these sites are just ass backwards. Nice. Okay, to start with my credentials, you got to start with the credentials, but he didn't start with them. He started with the other phrase. This is the second paragraph, but okay. 15 years as a developer. I interviewed candidates at my last job for 2 years, and I've had enough interviews to know how they work, and I have a secret weapon for how they work. Well, we'll get to that. You should start a YouTube channel. This video would pop. People love talking about how no one knows how to use Leetcode, even though everyone seems to be solving the problems on Leetcode. Okay, let's start with the first issue I have. How many problems you solve does not matter. But if I get X solutions, does anybody think that the number of problems they solve on Leetcode matters? I have solved like not very many, to be honest with you. But I never found that I needed to solve that many. Is it possible for you to stream 2 days a week? I'm enjoying this. I think I can. I think I should. I think I should stream more. Okay, back to the thing. I need to start here. Okay, I need to start here. I need to start here? No. I need to start here. Maybe he's doing someone else. I need to start here. No. Let's say you think 2,000 solved problems will get you the attention of some company. By the way, what he's about to do, he's doing proof by contradiction. So he's like, let's just say. That's what they always start the proof by contradiction like as, right? It's always like, let's assume. Let's assume that you got 2,000 of these cheeky problems in. I could create a bot that reads the top solution, pastes that, gets the score, and move on to the next answer. In fact, I know someone who wrote about it, and this was 5 years ago, and the companies have also read that. So having X answers doesn't really matter. Nobody has ever asked me how many Leetcode problems I've solved, if that's what you're getting at. When you were doing Leetcoding, how many times did you need the question before the algorithm clicked? The algorithms clicked. Or how many times did you need how many times did I need to do the problems before algorithms clicked? This is a good question. I don't know that Leetcode matters much at all, to be honest with you. I think Leetcode is going to 0, and let me explain why. Because let me just save my spot here. Okay, this is the line we're at. I think Leetcode is going to 0. Why do I think that? Because no one has ever made the case that Leetcode is the most optimal way to do interviews. No one's ever thought that. It's never been a topic on YouTube. Everybody knows it's fundamentally flawed, but it's been like just fine. Like it's been fine, right? And it's been fine up until now. But the fact that OpenAI and ChatGPT and all of these people can solve Leetcode problems with so unbelievably well. Like they can't do everything well, but Leetcode problems in particular are like the perfect thing for an LLM. Because of that, we have this weird thing where it's like they used to send online assessments where they'd be like, you have 2 hours to solve all these problems. They can't do that anymore. They literally can't do it because people would just use ChatGPT. They can't ask you how many Leetcode problems have you solved because you could do exactly what this person is talking about. And even the online interviews, I feel like are going to have to fundamentally change because of people like just using ChatGPT on the side. Like I feel like that's going to be, if that isn't a problem already, it's going to start happening. And I'm like, this can't last. Like this was never an optimal solution anyway. We all kind of knew it, and it's at the point where it's broken. It's like too broken. And I think we just, instead of trying to salvage it, we just leave it and we move on. It was good for while it lasted, the whole Leetcode thing. I don't think it's it, guys. I don't think that's it. Nice entry problems to train the brain. Read the subject correct is something harder than the code. Dude, I can't tell you the number of times I've solved a problem incorrectly because I read the problem wrong. I actually sometimes think I'm dyslexic. I'm not, but I actually I'll read the problem incorrectly. This is an example. I was at a museum recently. It was like an interactive museum. This was 2 days ago. And they were like, they set you up in this room. It's like a spy thing, right? So they're like, you click the button, the door opens, you go inside, you click another button, and then you tap as many panels, as many buttons on the side as you can. And then you try to see what your score is. And there's some lasers, you can't touch the lasers and all that kind of bullshit, right? So as this thing on this microphone is explaining it to me, I'm literally standing there like waiting to get to go. And all I'd heard was laser. And so I get in and I run to the other side of the room and dodge all the lasers and I click the emergency exit. I click the emergency exit and the door comes freaking swinging open and the woman runs over. She goes, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Nothing's wrong. I completed it. It was super easy. I must have done it in record time." And she's like, "Fucking idiot." And honestly, I think how you read problems is definitely like an indicator of like how you perform at jobs. And I'm trying to slow down because I do this thing where I don't even listen. I just do it. And that's not good. So that was my biggest problem with Leetcode problems. I didn't even know what problem I'm solving. I'm already halfway through the solution. I don't even know what the problem is. So I solved their 3-question timed coding reviews. So I'm ready. I solved their 3-question timed coding reviews. So I'm ready. I don't quite understand that sentence. Again, that's a good sign. But here's the thing. Leetcode has taught you to solve problems. That's not actually what's important in an interview. Here's what an interviewer actually cares about. They do care that you can break down a problem and solve the puzzle. But the important part is not the perfect solution. The important part is the first thing, breaking down the problem. Yes, I do agree with that. I mean, that's... People want to see, they don't want to see that you can solve a specific problem. They want to see how you go about solving problems in the first place. If you sat down and solved the puzzle with a perfect solution in 10 seconds after the interviewer has given it to you, the interviewer basically has to assume you memorized the solution. Even if he didn't, your solution has not told him anything about you, or actually is likely has told him not to hire you. I told an interviewer one time I knew the solution by heart. And then I got the problem wrong. I told the interviewer, I was like, I've seen this problem before, and I'd kind of seen it, but I didn't memorize the solution, but I kind of see the problem, and I was like, just so you know, I've seen this problem before. And he goes like, oh, okay, no problem, like just do it anyway. And then I solved it the way I knew how to solve it, and he was like, oh, this is great, but it's not the optimal solution. And I was like, oh shit, really? And then I had to find the optimal solution. But can you imagine how embarrassing it is to basically be like, dude, I know this problem, and then like to not know the problem? Okay, not to hire me, but I got the right solution. Did you? Sometimes I put a candle on when I do this and it's in my face now. Okay, did you ask any questions? Did you discuss the problem? Did you understand the parameters that might have been passed in, how the function would be used, how often it will be used, what's more important, speed or memory size? Did you design a test ahead of time? These are good points, right? Obviously, you need to know what problem you're solving, but all of these, honestly, are pretty easy to remember. Like if you're going into an interview online, like just write these questions down before you go in so you don't forget any of those questions. Just write them on a notepad, put them right there on the screen and be like, just make sure you ask some questions about how it'll be used and blah, blah, blah. This is a little bit, okay, you need to gather requirements before you solve the puzzle, but that's not saying that solving the puzzle is not important. Like anyone can ask these questions. This doesn't prove that you're a genius. Okay, I asked the questions. So then I write my memorized solution. Okay, he's getting to that, I guess. I should have gotten out of his way. Okay, again, if you just write down a perfect solution wordlessly, it's not a good sign. Agreed. Obviously, they want to hear you discussing the solution. They also need to know you can explain non-technical things. And this was you can explain technical things to non-technical people. This was one of my major advantages, I think, when I was at Microsoft, is like when I was doing the interview, one of the guys was non-technical and he made me design and explain a solution to a problem that he analyzed my resume, came up with a problem from my previous job, and then asked me about it. And I was able to explain it very easily to him because I'm like, I know how to explain things to people. I think that's why I have a good YouTube channel. I just like, talking to other people and explaining my thoughts is not too difficult for me. Thank God I'm blessed in that case. And that guy loved me. And I think he was like, this guy's a major hire. I think he put in the has to hire rating for me. Okay. Write down a perfect solution, blah, blah, blah. Again, the important thing is how you're breaking down a problem. What approaches are you considering? That's true, right? What algorithms do you know you might need? Have you used a map? Why do you use a map? You're always going to use a map, right? You're always going to use a cheeky little hash map. You're going to toss one of those in there. It's going to fix the problem for you. You don't have to ever do any thinking. These things, by the way, hash maps are not O of 1 memory. Can we chat about that? Why does no one talk about that? Like, well, let's see. Are hash maps O of 1 memory? Because they have clashes in real time. The real-time complexity of hash map is not O of 1. It is big O average, the size of the collision structure. Exactly. So we've done this weird thing where we just all think that hash maps are O of 1, and they in practice are a lot of the time, right? But they're not. Like, and it's weird because when we do algorithm analysis, we always talk about things in their worst case. But when we do algorithm analysis with hash maps, we're always like, oh, but don't worry about those ones. Those ones are fine. It's O of 1. It's actually not O of 1. Because every time there's a collision, there's a few methods, right? You could either store a linked list at that place, and now all of a sudden you're O of n, because if every single element in the n array had a collision with itself, you would get essentially a hash map with one entry that has a linked list. Or if you had basically you hash it and you put it as an entry into a gigantic array, right? Let's say you have a big array, you hash each element and you place it directly at that index in the array. You also then have to consider, okay, if there's a clash, then maybe I just put it as the next element, right? So there's an array, there's a big array, I get this element, I place it here, and then if I have a collision, I just place the next this element that I'm trying to put in at the next spot. But again, it's the same thing. If I have n collisions, I basically just get a full array. So it's O of number of collisions, or average size of the collision structure. There's different ways to deal with collisions, right? I've only explained two of them, and that's why they say the collision structure. Anyway, that's a super annoying. That's the annoying kid on the. That's my impression of the annoying kid on the Polar Express, where I'm like, well, technically, but no one ever talks about that. Dude, throw that out in an interview. The interviewer goes, could you use a hash map? I go, fuck no, dude, no. Those things are wild cards. Tell them that. Be like, those things, they are fake. They're lies. They're not O of 1. Say that to them. That'll impress them. Okay, these are things you should be communicating to the interviewer because that's more important than if your code even works. Okay, well, sure, that's how you approach your interviews, but I bet FANG companies care, ... Let me explain my secret weapon. My boy's got the secret weapon. Don't click away. It's coming up. Because they tell you, not the interviewer, but the recruiter. I was laid off in November. I've done a few interviews, unfortunately, past the phone screen at Google a week before layoffs, and every single interviewer tells you, in a not so coded way, this is what matters. Wait, what matters? Let me explain secret, exactly how I know almost every single interviewer approaches these interviews. Ready? Many recruiters for the company straight up tell you how to approach it. How our interview process seems to mention. I'm sick of hearing about it. That's how many times it comes up. They literally tell you the bare minimum. Talk through your solution. Guys, this is not groundbreaking stuff, to be honest with you. If you didn't realize that you don't actually have to solve the interview problem to get the job, I don't know what to tell you. I remember I interviewed at BlackBerry. It was one of the worst interviews of my life. I walked home that day and I had to take time off because I was like, I embarrassed myself today. I got nowhere near the solution to that problem. I wasn't even on the fucking right planet. And I got the job. And I think it was because I was the only applicant. No, okay. But I think it was because I was friendly. I explained my solution. I didn't know enough about low level at the time to know how to solve the problem. It wouldn't have appeared. It was a cool problem. You want to actually know the problem? Let's talk about it. What is this thing? This draw, Excel draw. Let's talk about it. So here's the problem. I'll ask you guys. Can I delete all this? Okay. So do you guys know what endiness is? Endiness is. Here's the problem. Here's what endiness is. So endiness is how a computer stores binary in your machine. So let's say you had a 4-bit number. And the computer can store it in two different ways, right? Let's say it's the number 0. So it can store it like this, which is how you would read it. If you were making a computer in real life, you would probably want to read it like this. Yeah, little or big endiness. And so this is how it makes sense to store it. This is how we write it. This is how we think about it. But it's not actually always stored that way. Sometimes it's stored the opposite way. And this is called little versus big endianness. So it'll be stored like this. And this will be the number 1 in a lot of systems. And so the question was, write a program to determine the endianness of a system. Is it little or big? I think this one is little, and I think this one is big. So the question is, I think it comes from like where's the most significant digit? Is it like first or is it last? And so the question is, how do you do this? And so the solution, well, try it on your own for 30 seconds. And don't try for 30 seconds. I'm not going to give you 30 seconds. But the solution is actually kind of fun. So what I tried is a bunch of stuff where I was like, okay, what if I could make like an int I, oh, this is an ugly font for coding. But I was like, let's say I go int I equals 1. And then maybe I can do some kind of weird, like I tried like some kind of weird bit shifting thing. And I was like, well, I'll try shifting it to the left. And then if I shift it 4 over to the left and then I shift it back 4, then, I was like, if I shift this 4 to, let me draw. If I shift this 4 to the left and then I shift it back 4, then this will still be the number 1. But if I shift this one 4 to the left, then the number goes to 0. And then I try to shift it back 4, the number doesn't come back. But that was obviously not going to work because obviously they invert the binary operators. So like I shift this to the left and it goes here, and then I shift it back to the right, it comes back. And then I shift this to the left, it just goes here. And then I shift it back to the right, it comes back. So that solution doesn't work. And I banged my head on that solution for like 20 minutes, or maybe like 20, 25 minutes. I tried to get that. That's not the way you do it. What you do, and God forgive me, I haven't written C++ in years, but you make a, basically, what would it be? Size of, how do I move this thing? This thing needs to move. Okay, so if I remember how to do this correctly, you go, so int star I equals malloc size of int. So this is basically allocating space on a heap. For people that know about the heap, it's a part of memory in the computer science system. Look, there's another thumbs up, where basically you can just store data as you need it. I won't get into it too much. It's not that fancy. The point is that this is an integer pointer. So I is not an integer, it's an integer pointer. So it actually is an address. So what's cool is you can, in memory, basically, this is your heap. Okay, that's enough. You get it. I wish I had one of those pencils. And so this I will point to like a place in memory. Okay. And now for simplicity's purposes, I'm going to write each bit as its own address in memory. That is not how, obviously, that's not how memory is stored. Memory is stored as I don't know, it depends on how big the system is, but let's assume it's a 1-bit system, which is obviously not usable, but let's just say it's a 1-bit system. So there's a number here, 1, and then there's 0, and then there's 0, and then there's 0. And so this 1 points to this whole chunk. And the chunk starts with a 1. Now, what's interesting about that, but here's the thing. You can't access it and be like, what's the first bit? It won't tell you. It'll always tell you like based on the endianness of the system. So you have to be clever. And you have to think, well, what is a piece of memory that only looks at 1 bit? A char pointer. Like a char is 1 bit in C, right? So then what you can do is basically just say a new char pointer points to the same address as this letter, or this number 1. And if that number is a 0, then it's little endian. And if that number is a 1, then it's big endian, because it's either pointing at a 1 or the 1 is down here, and so it's pointing at a 0. So you basically make a number 1 with 4 bits, and then you just you only look at the first one because you now treat it as a char pointer instead. That's kind of cool. I had no idea how to solve that problem live. There's no way in hell I would solve that problem. But I had the most embarrassing interview of my life at BlackBerry trying to solve that problem. Kind of a cool problem. Okay. Hello. European mapping. Okay. So, and the real damning problem is Leetcode absolutely doesn't test this or train this. You can post your own solutions, and if you do that, you're probably ahead of the curve. Why do people do that? Can I be honest with you? Why do people do that? No one's giving you a code review. This is Leetcode. No one's doing that. And also, those solutions often are like, they suck. They're not very good at explaining anything. Hi, Mike. Okay, let me get back to this article. So what happens in a real interview is being able to take parameter. Oh, we already talked about that. So instead of worrying about how many answers you get, how optimized your solutions are, worry more about how you're developing your solutions, and more importantly, how you're communicating them. And if you have someone else who is interviewing, practice interviewing each other. Yeah, okay. Groundbreaking advice. One of you takes a question, solves it, reads the solution tab to really understand it, and then does an interview on the other one to see how clearly you're communicating with each other, because that's really important. Okay, I get it. Well, this is wrong because of, it's not wrong, it's just very basic. Listen, I'm here trying to help because I'm so sick of misinformation. And guys, do you really think that you're supposed to solve many Leetcode problems? I didn't think anyone had that misconception. I know everyone on YouTube is always like, Leetcode, everyone's doing it wrong. And then is always like, how I solved 1,500 Leetcode problems, or what I learned solving 1,500 Leetcode problems. I don't know. I think it's a hobby, guys. If you like solving Leetcode problems as a hobby, I think competitive programming is super cool. I think it's kind of like math. I think it's just a hobby that you could get really good at, but